Live from the internet, this is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. Tonight we are recording episode 64 on this August 8th, 2019. I am your host, Mark, and I am joined by my good friend and yours, back from the dead, from the City of Angels. His name is Mino Spellgood. How are you doing, Mino?
Hey, Mark. Tired, stretched a little thin. I was talking to everybody. I really wanted to make it last week. My co-host convinced me to take the day off. It was a godsend, and I was super worried, but Inkwelder knocked it out of the park. And we were talking and said, hopefully we're on the same time sometime in the near future.
It was real nice to have Inkwelder with us, as we've had many other folks with us over the last several months. So very, very nice to have Ink with us and all the work the Tomberry Troop is doing. We are also joined by my good friend and yours from the City of Saints, or the home of the Saints, I guess. And his name is Kreese, a.k.a. Zurink.
Hello,
How you doing?
I am doing well. Doing better than Mino, definitely.
I'm so tired. I feel like what's that Lord of the Rings quote? Like butter scraped way too thin. I'm butchering it. You know what I'm talking.
I got you. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
butter,
it was awful.
butter scraped. Yeah, Bilbo says that when
Yeah.
he's at Rivendell, when Frodo goes and sees, I feel like butter that's been scraped too thinly on toast. Somebody find that stupid quote so we can actually say it. I feel like butter that's just on the toast. So thin on my toast. Oh, Bilbo. Spread too thin. That is what happens on toasted butter toast butter. So, hey, it's great to be here tonight, everybody. I'm glad everybody on Twitch is here. It's so nice to see you. It's nice to chat with you. Keep chatting in the chat, and we'll interact with you as the show goes on. Hey, give us a like, a follow, a sub, if you will. We're happy to have you here. Everybody joining us on the podcast, on YouTube, catching the stream later. We are one of the most, I don't know if you guys know this, we are definitely among Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia content creators. We are the most downloaded and listened to podcast on the Apple Podcast Store. So we should be real proud about that.
I guess so.
We're also the only one, but no, we are
Wait,
very.
are we the only one? I thought there's a JP cast.
Yeah, but they're not on the Apple Podcast Store.
Ah, okay.
Or any other podcast streamer, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everything else. But we actually are really high on people going back and watching us on Twitch and on YouTube, our number of counts. So if you are catching this later on Twitch or on YouTube, it's nice to have you with us too. So if you can join us sometime on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, or Friday, 1 a.m. UTC, that would be great. But we're so glad you're all listening. So news of the evening for this last week of Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. We have a new costume. We have an old costume, and that's the Zidane costume, which is not particularly great. But we have a new costume, which is Soldier Second Class. And, of course, that always comes with 9,000 gems. Did you gentlemen get that costume? Did you like that costume? How do you feel about it?
I got it, and I hate it, but, I'll buy it.
I got it, and I love it. I actually prefer Zack with his shorter hair.
Oh, you're crazy.
Yeah, this is short hair Zack, right?
Short hair, soldier uniform Zack, yeah. So he's in a second class uniform instead of the first class uniform that he normally wears.
He has Cloud's really crappy purple jumpsuit.
I feel
the one.
I feel like when I change the costume, his hair doesn't change at all.
It's like just show. I think this is the laziest costume.
It's
Bond?
different.
No, no, no.
though.
I like
Bonds
that.
is
No, no, no,
the
no, no.
laziest.
Bonds? Really? With all the new clothing? No.
It adds a shirt. That is it.
The pants are different too, and the shoes. Let's give him a little credit. But this
I
is
can't even tell the difference. I can tell the difference here.
this is slightly shorter hair, and I think he's missing one of the what do you call it? You know, when the hair comes down over his face. It's slightly
Bangs.
different, slightly shorter hair,
Yeah.
and a really really shitty looking costume. It's Cloud's shitty purple jumpsuit, right? Back when
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
PS1, you know, terrible graphics, they look like Lego characters. It's
I
it's not a
think-
good look.
I think, in the words of Bilbo Baggins, that Zach feels thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. Thank you, C. Sam, for that quote.
Thank you. That was gonna drive me crazy.
Just had to get it in there. But yeah, so if you want that, it's what it is. So there was a little surprise in the announcement of the stream and podcast. I said, oops, more high shards. Because if this was yesterday, I believe, if you were on a certain time, the Mog Gym store was reopened and refreshed with high shards and chocobo crystals. And if you had tokens, you could use them to buy more of certain ones. I don't think all of them got refreshed. It's kind of weird the way it ended up. And that was just for a limited time. And so to apologize for that, we all got 100 gems. They reopened the store and 84 exchange tokens. So you were able to buy all of the new high shards. So 275 more high shards and 16 more crystal or feathers. 16 more chocobo feathers, the 4-star ones. So for most of us, if you had already bought your 275 high shards and you weren't up in that couple hours, you basically ended up with 550. Now, if you hadn't spent your tokens, then I think you're stuck at 250, correct? And there's some chance that some people got even more. Does that make sense? 18 feathers, Slide is saying. So,
Yeah.
feathers.
So basically, the shop reset twice, but if only if you were up in time. Otherwise, you only get the one reset. Okay, I think I made it worse. Okay, so it reset at a certain time, and then it reset again as an apology, right? Because the initial reset was a bug, and then I guess they did it to make it official and for the apology.
From my understanding, the first reset was a partial reset. It only refreshed like blue high shards or something. Square Enix caught it, pulled down the Mog shop, realized their mistake was too late, reopened the Mog shop with all of the rewards reset to their original state and 84 apology tokens for the shop given out, plus 100 gems, is how I recall it happening.
Very generous. I believe people did the math, and you can awaken every character to 60 now. If
You can awaken if you've been playing since day one and collected all of the high shards, you can awaken every character to level 60. That was even before the glitch and the reopening of the shop. You were able to awaken every character to level 60, I believe. So, yeah, it was. I have not done that. Have either of you awakened everybody? I don't really see a reason to. But I have awakened most everybody. Anybody?
Sorry, that cut in and out for me. I think
Same for me. I missed what you said,
technical difficulty. I did not catch what you said at all.
Have either of you awakened all of your characters?
No, but I plan to. I really should.
After the refresh, I awoke my last character. That was Fujin. I'd been saving the greed and high shards for Iridia. And once I got the extra refresh, I was like, okay, I have enough, and awoke Fujin, who was my last character to awaken.
I need to awaken all the super synergy characters. Shiva. I've barely touched those boards, but I think I looked at them, and 5 of the 6 super synergy were still sitting at 51.
All right. Well, we also have a gem sale. It's a 7-day gem sale. exciting. So you can get your free gems or your extra gems on sale and with some extra different things. And remember that we do have the early August Chocobo missions. They are now able to completely be completed with the login 8 days. We've already had 8 days. So you have 7 days to do that. Make sure you get your death machines and your nightmares and your Magitech armor. Zack LC and Vayne, good places to do that. Cypher, Sarah, Afreet, Dissidia points, Enhance an Artifact. I have been able to clear mine. Hopefully you've been able to clear all of yours as well. So, but remind yourself to do that. And also with all this new content, remind yourself to check for new World of Illusions. Sometimes with these new Idojas and artifact farming in co-op, there's not necessarily a need to go to the World of Illusion. So make sure you're checking out the World of Illusions. Well, that brings
At
us...
the least,
Oh,
make
yeah, go
sure
ahead.
you are clearing each stage of the World of Illusions once to get the gems out of them.
Right, yes. Yeah, clear them at least once. I have almost not done that before. I think I have been able to do it. But there's been a couple that I forgot to do that. Whether it's an LC or a new event or anything else. So that brings us to kind of follow-up from last week, which is talking about Ultimate Shiva, which had just launched when we recorded last week's show. So I have finished all of the treasures on my Shiva boards, and I think I've mastered 16 characters. That would be different from a Freet where I've mastered 35 characters, just to give you a comparison. But I was able to grind fully all the treasures of my Shiva board. But how has Shiva been for you guys, and what's going on in Shiva?
Kreese, you could field this one.
Sure, I finished all my treasure board farming over the weekend, and since then I've been going back and mastering boards for characters that I believe I'll be using in the near future and will not be boosted anytime soon. So no double XP. It didn't take too long, but it did require a lot of grinding and a lot of 3x tomes used for experience. But once I got a nice swing of it, once I got the special boost characters that were not Sarah out of the way, things eased in quite a bit because Sarah trivializes the fight. It's a lot safer.
I have 6 treasures, and that's. I think I missed a big discussion last week. I do not care for this grind. And Macno and I were talking about it. I finally was able to put my finger on it. It's not that it's a difficult grind. It's just that over 90% you're going to see her ultimate attack.
Oh yeah, I stopped
diamond.
avoiding the ultimate. I just decided
Yeah,
I'll take
right?
the double diamond dust, summon friend, have Sylph summon ready to go right afterwards, and then just blow them up that way. It makes it much safer because you can make sure no one gets broken during it, so you don't have to deal with veils. If you have Sarah in the party, she has the poison. Even if you do not have her EX weapon, her base poison, fully awakened, is enough to really cripple the HP damage you take. So it's just slow is the problem.
Exactly. Like slow real time is the problem. And that's why like I just don't like popping books on it. It just feel good. And so like you said, I've been playing with comps, and you can skip the double diamond dust if you build really hard and carry one character at a time and have very specific friends. But that's tough. Like my friends list right now is probably half and half Cloud and Quistis, and then a smattering of random friends all over the place. So it's inconsistent. Sometimes I'll use up all the Clouds or use up all the Quistises, and you change strategies depending on, like Inkwelder said last week. But basically, most of the time, you're not avoiding the double diamond dust. So you're going to get hit by the double diamond dust. And I timed it. I timed the double diamond dust, by the way. It's over a full minute of animations. And then the veils will pop, usually. And then you have to break both. It's an annoying fight. And it's just annoying because it's purposely built to just eat your time away. And it's not challenging. At least I'm able to carry any character, no problem. But It's just not a fun grind, and I'm just gonna wait until characters are strong enough to just blow through them before Diamond Dust comes up. And I'm okay with that. Although I am still, spending my SP and leisurely doing it, and I'll see if I'll push myself this weekend to get all the treasures, but well, actually, I do have incentive now. I'm actually trying to ticket Sarah's EX, so we'll see how that goes.
That
Well,
sounds
there's a
like
lot of
good.
tickets left for you.
Yeah, there sure is. If you've only done 8 treasures, yeah. How have you
6,
been
but
doing on
yes.
it, Crease? Where are you on? You've done all your treasures. How many have you mastered?
I don't have the exact count, somewhere around 12 to 15. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of I did Vayne and Zack this morning and mastered both the Freet and Shiva with them. And that wasn't too bad, but it took probably an hour to do both of those boards for both of those characters. A little less, maybe 45 minutes. But
See, that
yeah,
seems long. Maybe I'm just spoiled by if with Ifrits, it's much faster with the double EXP stronger characters. So I'm really just gonna wait on Shiva.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think, I know there are some folks that are trying to do all of the boards, master all the boards, but hopefully there will be some quality of life changes sooner than later for us. Maybe not, but eventually there will be if we get what Japan has currently. And there's just characters that are going to be stronger. So, I mean, if it's a character I'm going to use, I'm going to master their board. If there's a character I'm not going to use, then why? Yeah.
I don't understand the people who would master every single character once a summon opens, because most of those characters you were not going to be using in content, and you don't really need the stats unless you're planning to use that character for the hardest content, which is Cosmos right now.
Well, it took me 22 books, so I guess 11 hours to master 14 or 16 boards and get all the treasures for Shiva. So,
That's a lot.
master,
That's a lot.
mastering, those are triple books. Mastering everything would be, obviously a lot. Well, I was staying up late listening to Cubs games this week, so gave me something to do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, see, if you have something else to do while you're doing this, sure. Even then, I don't like to do this while like watching TV or something. I feel like it still needs more attention than Ifrit.
Right.
But
It does.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But like, I mean, to play devil's advocate, people who want to max everything out now, I kind of get it. It's easier going forward maintenance because first of all, you have the super synergy now, 2 weeks. That's the fastest you're ever gonna grind. Otherwise, if you're just doing him one by one as they get double EXP, it's a struggle. And moving forward, you just have to do it for every new character that comes out, right? So it's less work in the future, I guess. I get the mentality though.
I only really grind people to master boards while they have 2x experience available, though. I'm not like on the side trying to grind characters who do not have that. That's the reason I choose a few that I do not believe will be boosted in the future, get their boards done now, and then wait on the rest unless I know I'm using them.
I mean, there's some good characters I want to use now that their boards haven't been maxed because they haven't hit ×2 on Ifrit. For example, like, I was thinking Ace isn't going to be ×2 anytime soon, and I think he'd be cool with the boards. I don't know. It's if you wait for the ×2 for some characters, you're going to be waiting a long time, especially
Right.
if their ×2 just passed and the new summon board came out. Right? I don't.
That's
It's
the purpose of special boosted and choosing those characters to do first.
Yeah.
exactly, which is why I understand people who want to go hard in these first weeks. I admire them. I just can't do. It drives me nuts. I think 5DPZ is the only person we know that's mastered all of Ifrit. Probably not even then. I know
There's a
Monta gave
couple.
up.
I think there's a couple who mastered all for it on our Discord, but yeah, not many. Ito was asking what the super or special synergy, special boosted period was, and that is 2 weeks. 2 weeks from the
Yeah.
launch of the
Also, I
summon.
think Edo is getting confused because we're mixing up our terms. We called it so far super boosted,
Yeah.
special boosted, super synergy tonight.
Uh-huh.
The global term is special boosted. It is
Special
the 6
boosted.
characters that are featured for Shiva Ultimate for the first 2 weeks it released. Everyone has 2x experience while farming Shiva Ultimate summon boards while they're in the party.
Specially super boosted super synergy characters. Yeah, special boosted characters, those 6 characters that give everybody else double XP, that lasts for 2 weeks. And then every other, so like I was in a Freet this morning, and because I was using Vayne and Zack and carrying them with Vanille, they didn't need to be carried, but brought Vanille to make it quicker with the Dispel. They were getting as much in a Freet as they would have gotten in Shiva, or as characters without XP were getting in Shiva, because they're still double XP characters right now, so they were getting the max points. So you can still take those upcoming characters and characters who are on banners, characters who are synergy for events, lost chapters, etc. You can still take them in later. And so if there are characters who are going to get a rework like Squall will probably be boosted double XP when he gets his rework, so you could wait to do him when he gets that, as opposed to trying to do him now and slugging along carrying him, because it's a pain in the butt. So I think there are characters like that that are going to be easier to wait on. But as you were saying, there are probably some characters that you might want to do now because it might be a while, and you may want to have their boards for things like Abyss, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, to cut in really quick, I'm starting to realize that, because when I'm realizing now, whenever a new event comes out, I just want to try the Cosmos fight instead of trying to grind the featured character up, because it takes a while. Plus, you want to save those SP refreshes or whatever. So my point is, if you're like me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's a little too impatient to, once an event drops, I want to play the event, not do the prep work. And so if, let's say, Ace awakens and he's ×2 synergy, and by the time that happens, there's 3 or 4 summon boards out. Do you really want to take the time to master 3 or 4 summon boards before trying him out? Because that feels so wasteful. So I get the people who want to get on it.
Yeah, well, let us know.
That's
what you're
fair,
doing.
but you
Yeah.
usually do not need the featured characters to complete events right now. But we'll get to that when we get to Vayne.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, I think Abyss is going to be a nice reality check for us moving forward. We'll kind of see, as anytime there's unique events, it is more likely to be a little bit unbalanced than perhaps things that have already existed before in the game. That does bring us to Cosmos, Shiva Ultimate Cosmos. Of course, the Cosmos Ultimate battles are a little different because everyone is synergy, and I'm not talking about special boosted. I'm talking about World of Illusion synergy for the actual battle. So how did you guys find Ultimate Shiva Cosmos difficulty? Not the one we grind, but the most difficult. After you unlock level 30 Shiva, you can do the 150 fight. So I know there were some people struggling with it. Mino, Kreese, how did you find this battle?
I'm gonna pass. Obviously, I only did 6 treasures, so I don't have Shiva 30 and unlocked yet.
You have not done
so,
In the week since then, I have done Shiva Cosmos. The first time I tried it, I did not realize that the split Shivas would not immediately go into Diamond Dust, so I did not plan the fight properly and actually got wiped. I came back the second time. I ended up waiting until Zack arrived, and I got his EX and got him fully awakened and geared. And I just crushed it once I had Zack in the party. It was a joke. Once you know what you're doing, once you have the fight sorted, it isn't too bad. And bringing a turn delayer such as a Quistis friend to push one of the Shivas back while you kill the other one really works great. Either that, or you bring a massive AoE character such as Twins to just destroy them once they split.
Yeah, I was gonna go. I was looking back and seeing if I had what I brought. I did not recall it being a particularly difficult fight. Of course, I have Sarah, and I believe I brought Sarah,
I did not use
Cloud,
Sarah
and
for
someone
this,
else.
just to make it clear. I think my party was Zack, Sephiroth, and Lena with Aquista's friends. So I was one of the few, even though I didn't get a video in on time, I was one of the few who did not use Sarah for this Cosmos fight.
Very good. All right. Well, let us know what you maybe did. I beat this one before. Yeah, here we go. I did. Oh, that's right. I did Christus, Sarah, and Agrias with an Agrias friend. So that's what it is. Yeah, so someone had a J.A actually had an Agrias friend set. So I brought two Agriases, and there was a lot of paralyzation going on in that battle. So that was one way to deal with that issue. Every once in a while, Agrias gets pulled out and gets used for fun things.
Just a couple of highlights from
Yeah.
Macnall's video compilation for the Shiva Cosmos. Sarah was the most popular character. Followed by that were Lena and Freya being used very frequently. So pretty much everyone brought a healer, everyone brought Sarah to finish this fight off.
Yeah, if you have Sarah's EX with her wound, moonlight debuffs, and her unique arrow debuff, yeah, they're not doing a whole lot. So, yeah. Arolai saying, what, Sarah? I used Twins Friends. This is Arolai saying I used I can't see it because we're scrolling too much. I used I'm gonna have a headache here in a second. Arolai, who did you use to beat Cosmos? Shiva, let us know. She used Twins
She
Friend.
used Sid and a twins
Oh,
friend is what I
Sid,
recall
yeah,
from
yeah.
one of her videos.
Fun. Yeah, Slide is saying Sarah and Lena is too much battery. Yeah, there's a lot of there is a lot of bravery bleeding if you have too many batteries,
Oh
especially
yeah,
synergy.
the role I brought Sid Onion Knight Letta
Yeah, of
and
course.
swapped out Onion Knight for twins during the split.
I wanna bring up a really quick thing. I don't know how relevant, because I think we were talking about it in our Discord about how Shiva Cosmos was considered way, way, way easier than Freya Cosmos, obviously, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think if memory serves correctly, these weren't even called Cosmos fights uh, in JP. Like it's only until like after I believe Ramu or Leviathan, like four or five boards in, did they decide to retroactively call these Cosmos fights. So I remember at JP, they didn't even consider these Cosmos fights because they were just like level 150 fights. And of course, Cosmos is 152. But they're
Right,
saying like
right.
a lot of these summon board fights were not Cosmos difficulties. They weren't labeled as such, and they weren't anywhere near the difficulty of event Cosmos.
I would say this was around the same as Act 2, Chapter 2 Cosmos difficulty. The thing is, with everyone being boosted, it feels easier because your characters are stronger.
Yeah, especially if you have characters that are helpful for this, like Sarah's really helpful. Eamon is saying he brought Lena Rosa Jet. Jet is a real good option with the fire weakness, and he can really help with that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different, even characters. Dragoon EX is saying Renoa, Freya, Sarah. Yeah, I mean, Renoa and Freya are doing more damage because they're boosted. The twins are doing more damage. I don't know how you got away with using Onion Knight because they have don't they absorb ice, the level 50 ones?
Jake is
Yeah.
asking in chat,
Yeah.
why do you think Ifrit Cosmos only had one wave while Shiva had three? Well, I would say because Shiva is coming with the Cosmos difficulty spike, right? Like if the power creep Cosmos, because we've seen garbage time power creep, but this is even more extreme, right? Like if you take a look at like Zack and Vayne, and you see how much the power level has jumped from them between, say, when Ifrit was coming out and Kuja and Golbez were fresh characters, then I think you can see like if we thought garbage time power creep was big, this is getting. But then it's supposed to plateau out from here on.
All right. Well, let's go to our next event, which it's hard to believe we've had a lot of content. But our next event is Zack LC shining in someday, and everyone's favorite best friend forever, Zack. Zack, what's it? Fair? Zack Fair? Is that his last name? Zack something.
Yes.
Yeah. Comes
Zack
back,
Fair.
and we get a Awakening and an EX. So, Kreese, if you would go ahead and take us through Zack.
Sure. So Zack gets a party aura from his Awakening passives, buff attack boost all, raises the party's attack and max brave while he's buffed. Along with that, he leans pretty hard into his specialist role of being a very offensive tank. His extension passes make it so that he regenerates brave after using basically all of his abilities. Chains everything dumps brave now. So he gets an HP plus, a brave plus. Chain slash now dumps brave, can brave overflow. He gains HP back after dealing the eight or gains brave back after using the HP attack based on the HP damage. Rush Assault does the same. He gets 10% of the total HP damage he deals during the attack back in brave. Rush Assault now deals 3 different HP attacks across its 8-hit set of Brave attacks. He gets a Brave Attack Plus, which can inflict lock, so R provoke for a couple of turns on a target if you don't want to use Chain Slash. He gets an HP Attack Plus that raises his own Brave before dealing an HP attack and then gives him Brave back based on the HP damage dealt. And then the last thing he gets is his EX ability, Apocalypse, which is on a normal base recast speed. This thing comes up initially after about 3 ability uses, and after that, it's about every 2 to 3 ability uses to get it back after that. It's an AoE magic attack that deals pretty good damage, can overflow brave, inflicts lock to all targets. The big thing it does, though, is it gives Zack a unique buff called Brave Barrier, which reduces all damage dealt by 150% of Zack's initial brave. If the attack does less than 150% of his initial brave, Zack takes 0 damage from the attack. And while it has a short duration, Apocalypse also comes back up fast enough that it's never an issue as far as I have been able to tell from my experience with Zack. And the only nuance with Brave Barrier is that it can be removed if Zack gets broken. So avoiding breaks is a smart thing to do, although Zack's kit right now is designed in such a way that he rarely gets broken. I have yet to see Zack get broken after he gets Brave Barrier up. One note with his EX weapon is that if you fully limit break it, get it to limit break 3, it passively raises his attack and his initial brave, both things that he needs for his kit. And that makes it pretty important because Zack, while he gets some attack boosts from his Awakening, it's nowhere near like Sephiroth or even Zidane levels of attack bonuses. And it shows if you do not have his EX weapon fully limit broken, his damage is going to feel weak unless he has a big source of party buffs boosting his attack, despite his ridiculously high potencies. A quick reminder about Zack is if you do not know how he works, his attack potencies go through the roof when he is being targeted by an enemy. Otherwise, he hits kind of like a wet noodle, so keep that in mind. You want Zack to be targeted, and that's the reason he's called an offensive take. He wants to dump his brave frequently, but he also wants to draw attacks to him, so he's constantly hitting as hard as possible. I think that's primarily it for him. I found that really the way you want to start his ability use when you use him depends on the fight. If there's nothing targeting Zack, Chain Slash is not a bad idea to start with to get a lock on an enemy. If an enemy is targeting Zack, you can start with Rush Assault instead to get his Max Brave up buff active. He has a very poor Max Brave. Without that buff up, getting it up fast helps a lot. And basically, beyond that, just conserve your ability uses depending on what type of fight you're dealing with.
Yes. To add to that, so I think we talked about our pulls already. How did you do again, Kreese? You did like 50K gems, I believe.
It was
250.
376 tickets and then 50,000 gems before I got Zack's EX. I basically MLB'd the banner.
Right, and that's fair. And then I think, Mark, how did you do again?
I have not gotten Zack EX, and I
Oh,
have
right, you're
spent
working on it.
479 tickets.
I mean, do you really want him? Like, if you don't hit with tickets, are you okay with just moving on? Or are you gonna start
I believe I'm going to move on if I don't hit with tickets.
Okay, which I think is not a bad choice. Um, as I think we already said in the beginning of the show, I pitied it, and it extra stung, I guess, because because it was a second pity in a row because it was Jacked before this, and then this 2 gem pull. And the worst part is I always seem to pity on characters I want fun, and not the meta characters. So, but um, from what I can tell, and we're gonna talk about like taking outside advice with a grain of salt later on, but from what I'm told, Zack's performance throughout Cosmos is that sure he's gonna fall off. That actually from personal experience first, where we were using him in 2 synergy events back to back, so I feel like I'm still in a bit of a synergy bias mindset about how hard he actually hits tanks. Because once his Brave goes down from the synergy boost, his shield is not going to be that impressive. In fact, I bet you in a few weeks the shield will be almost a non-factor because I don't see many Cosmos bosses hitting just under the shield, unless you're like crazy trying to boost it with Warrior of Light and Lena or something. Then that's not worth it. He has so many hits though, so the word of mouth is that as we're near entering the Cosmos era, we're getting deeper in. Auras become stronger and stronger and stronger to the point that mid to late Cosmos, he actually gets a lot more use out of those, say, attack auras than most characters will, or defense down, because he has so many hits and repeated Brave plus HPs as well. But as a tank, very iffy, and I just like that he stole Snow's mechanic, right? Recovering a portion of Brave after every Brave dump.
Yeah.
Snow's like just completely out of the picture from here on out, even until JP timeline 10 months out. Snow's just disappeared from the game. Zack completely took his function, all of it, and is doing it much.
Snow doesn't have an EX yet, does he?
Nope.
Yeah.
He never got an Awakening rework beyond that.
Right.
I mean, he's still the same Snow, except level 70 now.
Yeah, there are a handful of characters that are pretty much just, including one on a banner currently, they're pretty much just dead. I mean, no reworks, no EXs, certainly no EX pluses yet. It's interesting.
It's really unfortunate. I think we talked about this before too, that the balancing seems a little off sometimes. For example, there's characters who have been dead for a long time, like Cater and JP Saws, because they didn't get 35 like we did, and they just continue to be dead 2.5 years in the game cycle. They've never gotten their time to shine. And for those following JP, Galoof got reworked recently to be a very viable tank. And Snow's still sitting on the back burner, even though Galoof got his Awakening much later than Snow and was still viable in the 60 era. And Snow's just been dead for like a year.
I think Galoof was used in the Act 2, Chapter 3 Cosmos by at least one person, right?
Yeah, because he's not bad right now for what he does, right? But Snow's completely terrible for what he does. And also, I defaulted to saying Galoof again. Damn you, Square Enix Glaze. I got this terrible pronunciation from you. Galuf is actually, I think Galuf's had a good run. When his 35 came out, albeit we got it early, he was very viable. I think he's still viable now if you're doing full physical fights like Ifrit, right? And his 70 Awakening and EX is very viable as well, whereas Snow is just kind of been shoved to the side. And he is one of the handful of characters that are just never good, it seems. Sadly enough.
Well, perhaps he'll have his time. What can we say? Yeah, I don't have Zack's EX, but I do feel like even without his EX, he's usable. His EX
I agree with that.
gives him some additional things, but his main mechanics are present in his first two abilities. So I was able to use him in his LC without an issue. Obviously, that's not Cosmos level, but
I will
hopefully
say
it will
that
work in
Zack's
Heretics.
EX charges fast enough that it really extends his combat longevity,
Oh, sure,
especially in
yeah.
these longer fights.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just think he's a fun character. I think we were just discussing kits in Discord today about what characters are fun, and I'm saying I don't like pulling pure DPS characters. Zack is a very heavy DPS character in the right condition, but he has tank mechanics, and Vayne has the whole re-break mechanic, and he takes some nuance to play. So it's better than, say, grabbing like Kuja and Golbez and spamming ability. So I like these characters, but I personally pulled now, and by the way, in the 70 era, Zack is the first tank to surpass Warrior of Light. Finally, like, knock him out of his throne. So I think Zack is a fun character. So if you are interested at all, I really do advise you to pull, because, or you can, if you're a big Ignis fan, you can wait until he comes back. But Ignis isn't the prize. It's up to you.
Yeah, I did see Ignis take about 6 turns in a co-op this week, really not doing anything, but just apparently Ignis
Ignis
gets
is one
tons
of
of
those.
free turns, doesn't really do anything, but
We're gonna get to that host discussion, right? But it fits so well because Ignis is another character that JP just talked and talked and talked about, and he lasted less than a month as well.
yeah.
Same with like, there's just so many of these characters. This is gonna be our host discussion tonight, guys. But Ignis is a prime example of what we're talking about. People would not shut up about Ignis when he first came out, I remember, and then he faded. He disappeared quicker than he came.
That brings us to the event itself. We probably don't need to cover it. It is not a Cosmos difficulty battle. It is a level 100 EX fight in the LC. Again, I had just a regular 35, 15 CP Zack with 2 other characters. It was not very challenging. I don't know if you found it or if anybody listening here on Twitch found it particularly challenging, but probably moving ahead, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about those level 100 fights because we're beyond that now in the most difficult content.
Right. I as we said, EX fights should almost just not be covered anymore because our characters are scaled way, way above it.
We can't.
And Zack's Lost Chapter EX was not challenging, especially compared to the original EX we got when he first arrived. It was a joke this time.
Well, let's save banner discussion to after we talk about Vayne, because I do want to talk about, if you are a new player, I have someone that I know that just started playing the game. Which banner right now is the ideal banner? And there's a couple of different opinions, and so I want to talk about that. But let's wait. This banner was Zack EX, Laguna, and Layle. Let's come back to that after we introduce the other banner. And then I just want to talk about that briefly. So remind me to do that. So that brings us to our event that just launched 24 hours ago, 23 hours and 45 minutes ago, actually, called Conqueror's Duty, introducing Final Fantasy XII, spoilers, villain, Vayne Solidor. And Vayne is, well, he has a banner mate, Cyan, who is a selfish DPS, right? Cyan is a very selfish, doesn't have any auras, anything else. Doesn't have his EX weapon, or still doesn't in Japan, but just that's his character. He's a selfish DPS. Vayne,
Cyan's gimmick is that he ignores defense.
He does
the problem
ignore
is
defense.
that he doesn't do enough damage for that to matter anyways.
The problem is everyone ignores defense now. Lulu ignores defense. If I needed to bring a character that ignored defense, there's a long line before I would get to Cyan.
So Cyan is a selfish DPS. Paladin Cecil's this jack of all trades. Vayne does everything they do and probably more better. Oh, that's not fair. Paladin Cecil does several unique things, but Vayne
Right.
seems to do just about everything. Somebody was talking in our Discord that they wish he had a bravery gen. I don't like how many other things could he have? He's got about everything. So, Chris, why don't
I mean,
why don't you tell us a little bit about Vayne before we start talking about him in more detail? What does Vayne do? Why all the hype?
Because Vayne does everything. That's why. So to start, Vayne has two unique buffs. The first being Consul's Ingenuity, which he gets by using his second ability, Force of Will. This is a buff aura. He raises his own attack and max brave a little bit, but he also, on top of that, raises the party's attack and max brave. Attack by 25%, max brave by 50%. And this buff lasts 10 turns. The second buff he has is called Conqueror's Power, which works as a buff aura, sort of in the vein of Sephiroth's Genova. It debuffs the enemy. And in this case, Conqueror's Power reduces enemy attack based on the level of the debuff. It can go up to 3 levels for a total minus 15% attack. And the way Vayne works is that once he has 3 levels of Conqueror's Power built up, he gets free turns until Conqueror's Power wears off. So in his base form, all of his abilities, including his Brave Plus and HP Plus, which are called Kick and Pummel, are used. He gains stacks of Conqueror's Power once he is at max stacks, 3. All of his abilities turn into plus forms. They all no longer refresh Conqueror's Power, but they all do not consume turns, and they have instant turn rates. So basically, he gets 3 consecutive turns in a row once that happens. His first ability is Mock Wave. Beyond giving him 2 levels of Conqueror's Power, it's a no-frills attack. It hits relatively hard. It can Brave Overflow. That's about it. His second ability, however, is where the real magic happens. It gives him Consul's Ingenuity, his buff aura. It gives him another level of Conqueror's Power. And it does 2 HP attacks as part of it. It does a 2-hit melee attack followed by an HP attack. After that, it does something that we have not seen up to this point, where it cancels the target's break status. So if the target is broken, Vayne unbreaks the target, then performs another Brave plus HP attack. What this means is that it is theoretically possible for Vayne to delay an enemy's turn every time he uses Force of Will, and possibly by 2 if he starts attacking an enemy that is not broken, breaks it in his first chain of attacks, uncancels that break, and then breaks it again. So basically, Vayne is now our second best turn delayer after Quistis. While Vayne has Consul's Ingenuity active, Brave Attack turns into Kick, which is a 2-hit melee attack, very strong one. That also gives him another level of Conqueror's Power. Pummel, or HP Attack, turns into Pummel, which is another 2-hit melee attack, which hits decently hard and gives him another level of Conqueror's Power. And finally, just because he didn't have a loaded enough kit, he also has an EX ability on a slow minus recast timer called Tree of Sephira. It is an AoE magic attack, hits decently hard, can Brave Overflow up to 150% max Brave. It also restores 1 ability used for Mock Wave and Force of Will upon use. If you use it in its base form, it also immediately brings him to Conqueror's Power level 3, so he can immediately go into free turns after using it. Like his other abilities, Tree of Sephira Plus, which is active while he has Conqueror's Power 3 active, does not give him more levels of Conqueror's Power, does not refresh the buff, but is also free turn. So things Vayne does, he can turn delay thanks to Force of Will, canceling breaks, and then him immediately breaking the target. He has very long combat longevity with a Brave Attack Plus and an HP Attack Plus that help him build up his free turn mechanic. He has a relatively strong basic ability that can Brave Overflow. And he has a buff aura that he gives the party along with himself. And he also recharges abilities on his EX. Vayne is basically the strongest, longest lasting, one of the best character kits I think we've seen up to this point. And I think even up till for a long time in Japan, this was one of the strongest character kits I think they ever saw.
Okay, so let me come in with the rebuttal here. So Vayne is an incredibly overtuned kit. No mistaking that. The hot gossip in JP is that all he needed for his to catch up to the new era, where what's
Chaos
losing the word.
EX plus.
But no. But like not mandatory, but yeah, whatever. All he needed were stat boosts.
Right.
No kit changes to catch back up to the meta. He only fell off because of pure stat power creep, where his numbers just weren't enough anymore. Vayne is incredibly overtuned. There's no questioning that, but I also know that nobody really regretted missing him because he does get a lot of alternatives coming up, and pound for pound, Noctis, who is not too far away, is supposed to crush him out with the exact same utility. As in, Noctis gets those free turns, he gets those interrupts, and he gets those consistent delays and launches, and he does more damage along. So he does require a little more build-up than Vayne. But I do know that while Vayne does last most of Cosmos, no question, Noctis has longer mileage and is supposed to edge him out just a bit. So nobody was too upset about losing out on Vayne, unlike Lena, who was the #1 overload character. I think we're going to later as well. Because as Mark said, I wish Vayne had bravery gen. Well, if you bring Lena, everybody has bravery.
That's the solution to that problem.
Right?
And there is a reason that Lena and Vayne are the two most used characters in the current Call to Arm video compilation. So they do complement each other fairly well. Because Vayne does not work well with characters like Sarah, who give you generic buffs, because he's going to burn through those buffs before she gets another turn. So anybody who gives auras is going to help Vayne a lot more than anyone who gives buffs, unless they're giving buffs like Ico, which are increasing his buffs, and then, they're 12-turn buffs, so they're just good buffs.
Right.
Vayne, I think Vayne is one of the more interesting characters to play that is meta, because I think a lot of people are not playing him very well. At least that's my initial reaction to people playing him. And I think even for myself, I think it's going to take a while before I really kind of get a rotation that I'm comfortable with using Vayne, because he can burn through his abilities even though he refreshes them really quickly.
And that's why I do actually really like Vayne. He's not just a straight power creep like Renoa or Golbez or Kuja, where like he takes skill and nuance to play well, and you're rewarded for your effort. He's the opposite of Alize, who you put in a lot of effort and get nothing for. He actually rewards you for learning the game and the mechanics. So I think he's a very good character, and I can't really hate him for this level of power creep. And you're saying people don't use Vayne well. I'm playing this co-op. People don't use Zack well. I don't think a lot of people understand.
I've seen people use Sarah terribly too, and she's very simple.
I don't think people understand that you need to be targeted for Zack to be good. Like I've seen people just spam skill 2 all day, or I've seen, oh man, please don't bring Zack to co-op if there's already another Zack. I had a 3 Zack run. I knew I wasn't going to get the taunt. So I just sat there while the other 2 fought over the taunt, and nobody did any good damage. And that fight took twice as long as normal. That was extremely painful.
I do not show Zack anymore for that co-op. I wait until everyone else is in the room, then I'll swap to Zack if no one else is showing him.
Right, exactly. That's what I do now. I enter with Zack. Well, I'm going to start entering with Vayne once I level him. But this co-op is hilariously fun because all the insanely OP characters are synergy, but also Zack and Vayne had the longest animations. So even though the boss dies in a very few amount of turns, the fight still takes a decent amount of time. It's pretty ridiculous. Oh, did you also mention that Vayne is the second ever character and a villain as well to have the invisible debuff?
Yes. No.
I did mention that Conqueror's power reduces enemy stats similar to Sephiroth's Genova. It's attack instead of speed, though.
Right. So it's a very cool and still a unique mechanic for now. Have an invisible debuff.
You do have to realize with that it is the stackable buff that gives the minus attack aura, correct?
Yes, it is.
So you can it's not necessarily going to be up as much as Sephiroth's aura is, because you do burn through that stack when you use the free turns. So
You'll always
Yeah.
have at least
at
one
least one,
stack
correct.
of
Yep.
Conqueror's power up. You might not have max stacks, but you'll always have one, so you'll always be reducing the attack a little bit.
Mhm.
But you
And-
could play
and-
you could play in a way that would assure the higher debuff if you really wanted it. So it's something to think about as you're playing in tight situations.
Yeah. And just to put a capstone, I guess, before we move on to the Cosmos fight, is to follow up on what I was just saying a little earlier about, don't worry if you miss out on Vayne, it's not the end of the world. There's going to be alternatives. Always look at how unique someone's kit is forward. And I guess that's a thing that GL has, the foresight that JP doesn't have, because they don't know what's coming next. But for example, we were discussing this when we were dissecting Maxwell's Call to Arms. A lot of JP players said they regretted passing on Lena, because Lena is the only person who can give everyone insane eye brave and heals for the longest time until literally the end of Cosmos era. It was just Lena, and even then she was used in some of the early chaos because her kit is just that unique. And while Vayne's kit seems unique now and very powerful, Noctis is coming in a month and a half, and he can do basically the same thing. And then there's going to be other characters who can re-break, like Noelle down the line, and just do massive amounts of DPS and delays. So like, when you're pulling for characters, always look at how unique their kit is. And that's why I pulled for Lulu. I don't know if I regret this or not. But the fire enchant and the fire disenchant, I was like, with these Abyss Heretics coming up, who knows what GL's throw at us. It's a very useful character, right? Because nobody else does this.
Well, and I think we've talked about that before, the idea that, yes,
Yeah.
now Vayne does a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, he's still really a DPT, DPS character, whereas Len is a support character and is going to be making other characters better. Lulu is a very niche character, so there's going to be times where she's much more usable. Poor Rydia. We'll talk about her when she comes, but she's always the last girl to the party. But that's a whole different conversation.
To the check-in in chat, Erole makes a great point. She says Porum's another character that's going to be just like Lena.
Yeah.
It has a very unique mechanic that many JP players ignored. It turned out to be extremely useful. The whole reduction of HP damage taken isn't seen again for a very long time. Porum also proved useful for early chaos as well because of that. And Polish Prince also says, don't forget Lena has the 90% eye brave down.
Yep.
You know, like you're never going to see that again either. So there are a number of characters coming up. Erole makes a great point. We need to start looking at Porum more closely. She's very, very unique for the longest time.
Cannot pull on Porum, so I don't
Oh no,
care.
that's fine.
I don't care. I don't care if she is, the best character
But we need
in
to
the
shine.
game.
We need to
I'm
shine a
not
light, because Erole
pulling
and
on
Macno,
Porum.
we were all just discussing in Discord literally earlier today as well about characters that were overlooked by JP players, and Porum is definitely one of them, along with Lena. So we have to make sure we shine a spotlight on that when it comes around.
The thing is that it seems it's a lot of the support characters that seem to be overlooked from the foresight, and these are the characters that don't really shine as much when you just take them in a vacuum. You have to put them in environments where their special quirks work. For example, we suddenly start getting a lot of combat and encounters where all of a sudden the brave regen helps because you have long fights, the HP healing helps because you can't avoid the HP attacks anymore, and Lena all of a sudden is the best support because she does both of those things. She constantly is regenerating the party, she's constantly healing everyone.
And nobody saw the rise of Eyebrave. You know, Warrior of Light, Zack, all these characters are just scaling like crazy on Eyebrave. Nobody saw this. That's for sure.
Even Sephiroth, to a lesser extent, scales on Eyebrave because he brings his own brave regen that stacks with everything else.
Jekt as well. You know, like so many people are bringing their own regens as well, so it gets really crazy. T Subverted is asking, does Porum increase max HP? No, what Porum does is she
Oh, wait.
reduces
She might have an HP
HP
buff, too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
let's. Should we wait for another episode? Or are we
Yeah.
addressing this now?
No. But
This is too early.
Yeah,
Porum does increase max HP and also does damage reduction. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, but we'll talk about Porum when Porum comes. Porum's not a bad character. I just hate Porum with the passion.
But her
So-
her biggest sell is that she reduces HP damage taken by 70%. And people playing at the time during Cosmos are like, why would I ever need that? And then Chaos comes and people are getting destroyed left and right. They're like, wait a minute, 70% HP damage reduction is amazing. So, something to think about going forward. But again, that's a discussion for another.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to talk about before we talk about the Cosmos is these banners. So we have a whole bunch of banners now. Like I said, I have someone who's starting to play the game. What is a good banner? Because obviously Vayne's banner mates are hot garbage. Now, I like Paladin Cecil. He's one of my favorite characters in the game. He's one of my favorite characters in Final Fantasy in general. I have his complete kit. Cyan is hot garbage and has not changed in JP, so I don't see that. But overall, without his EX, Paladin Cecil's not particularly great. So this is not a great banner, but it has a really super powerful character on it. So is it better to pull on a banner with one really good character or a banner? People are saying like, well, the Act 2 Chapter 3 character banner is still up with Freya, Vivi.
Act 2 Chapter 3 banner is now down. It just timed out.
Oh, it just timed out. Well, it's still up on my thing. But before it went down, that has 3 decent characters. Is it better to pull on
Zidane is still good.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're all good. I mean, they're all usable, but none of them are, game-breakingly awesome. Sarah, Sarah's pretty good. Thancred, actually, Cypher's pretty good. Thancred without his EX, not particularly. Zack the same way. Layle's going to get a rework, so he might be good. Laguna's due for one at some point. Zack's really powerful right now. So, as a new player, how do you think you should approach the game? Is it better to have just a few different characters or just pull for the characters you like? Or would it be better just to have one really powerful character, get through all the content, and then, save gems and who cares, go to town? What do you guys think?
I would say none of these banners are like amazing for new characters, though I would say if you were a new character and you were looking for a banner that would get you the most mileage for starting out, it would be either Vayne or Sarah banners. And I'm going to make an argument for Paladin Cecil here. As a new player starting out, getting his 15 and 35 CP weapons means Paladin Cecil is providing a nice HP regen, Brave regen, and also a defense up with his abilities. He provides Brave Battery. He provides healing with a second ability. He has decent combat longevity, not as great as without his EX, but still there. He works pretty well. You want his EX ultimately, but if you're a new player and you're just starting out, his 15 plus 35 CP combination is pretty good. Vayne will last you a long time. He is a very good character on that banner. The only real true dud for a new character is Cyan.
Yeah.
And the Sarah banner, you get Sarah, who's amazing support. You have to grind artifacts for her, which means a new player has to be aware of that going into her, because she's okay without her artifacts, is what I'm seeing, but she's much better with them. Thancred and Cypher are okay characters right now. You're not bringing them to top tier content, but they'll help you clear new content as you're starting out. Both of them are pretty solid damage dealers. Zack, I'd say, is probably the weakest banner out of this. Layle's okay. Laguna's okay. Zack's the only real winner on that banner right now.
I mean, Priest said pretty much what I wanted to say. I was going to defend Paladin Cecil too.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Grease said.
Yeah, for a new character, he has it's stronger Beatrix, and she carried for the longest time, which is defense up and HP regens. That'll get you through a lot of content. Honestly, very solid. No other options. If we're just choosing from the pool of banners right now, and Vayne is a safe bet for lots of carries for the next few months. And again, I do think it is better to save gems and hit better banners.
Yeah.
So I think by far Vayne winner.
Orole makes a good point. Both on the Sarah banner, both Cypher and Sarah are good AoE units. So that is helpful in early content, especially doing some good AoE damage. But again, Vayne's going to get 25 turns. So yeah, that's something to think about. Yeah, I guess that's another question. So if you are a new player and you're thinking about spending gems or tickets, as a new player, do you go all in? Do you save up 75,000 gems and go all in on one banner, or do you just shotgun pull for a while, or not use gems at all and just use whatever tickets you can grind away and just use the 15 CPs? You'd get a ton of 15 CP weapons as a new character or as a new player. So, is it just going to be good enough to use some of that? Especially with the free high shards you got, so you can awaken things. Any thoughts about that? What strategy you would suggest to a new player? Keep your gems, go all in on a banner, spread them out. I don't know.
The thing with Cosmos Era is it's supposed to level out a lot. As in, this is the level of difficulty it's supposed to stay at.
Yeah.
Months. That's why it's famous for being 90% clearable with all these characters that launched at the beginning of Cosmos. As we talk about a lot, the team of Warrior, Light, Noctis, and Pain can destroy everything up to Charlotta, period. And these are characters that are dropping at the very beginning of Cosmos because the difficulty is supposed to plateau. So, honestly, usually, if you asked me a year ago, I would say shotgun. If you ask me now, I would say funnel all your resources into the 2 or 3 must-have banners. And unless Global throws us some curveballs, it should carry you all the way to Chaos. Or at least until Charlotta, who will carry you to the rest of the way to Chaos. So...
Well, you're unlikely to get enough as a new player right now, get enough new characters to do very well in Heretics. So you kind of want to get the characters Abyss to get to characters that are going to help you through content. Yeah, several people, Eamon, Arolai, Harith, are saying shotgun pull. So
I could see arguments for both shotgun pulling and for focus pulling. The thing with Abyss, especially for new players, is you're not going to be able to complete most of that content anyways. Your roster is going to be too limited. And if you shotgun pull, you might not have full kits for a lot of characters for a long time. If you focus pull, at least you'll have full kits for 2 to 3 characters, and you'll have something that you can work with as a starting point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do want to try to develop a decent team at the beginning of the game just so you can clear content. And by a decent team, a good DPS character, a good support character, perhaps a good AoE character, perhaps a good magic. And, we're going to talk a little bit about that moving forward. So
Arole says this is the best advice, honestly. There's a lot of really good double EX banners coming up. Just focus on that and then shotgun pull. Build a base. For example, if we're getting the 70 Awakening JP got, which is very iffy given the Square Enix stream and their reveals of when those A-Dojas were. Because Yuna's coming, they said next month? So
Yuna's next month, Cater's this month.
A lot of people are theorizing that Warrior of Light might get pushed back. And this isn't the first time Global has nerfed things. Because remember when Cloud was supposed to get his mini rework / buffs with his 35 CP, but they delayed it until his 60 Awakening because they didn't want Cloud to be too strong too long? Well, Cloud wasn't strong nearly as long as Warrior of Light. So the fact that they announced that Cater and Yuna are coming with the A-Dojas, Yuna is a white crystal, they might be pushing Warrior of Light back. That's the theory.
I would disagree with that, because if Yuna was coming for the first wave, she would be timed the same as Cater, because Cater is most likely first wave still of 70 Awakenings. Cater is coming this month, Yuna's coming next month for the Idoja passives. So I still think Yuna's coming second wave Awakenings. I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it right now.
So fingers crossed, if we get the same banner, which I'm really hoping, JP, which is Shantoto and Warrior of Light, double EX on one banner. That is, I would tell people that is the time to start this game. a new player. Warrior of Light is just gravy, but having his 15 CP and 35 CP on a banner, that'll get you through most of Cosmos.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and Shantoto is the best mage
For a
until
while.
I believe
Ace?
Ace. No.
Terra?
Alize is really strong as well. She comes very soon too. But again, Shantoto was still a top tier mage until Ace blew them both out of the water. So I mean, she's a great DPS for a while. It's not a loss.
She must
That's
she must overtake Rydia, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Rydia.
Poor Rydia. We're supposed to be talking about her next week, and she's already getting dumped on.
No.
Poor
In
Rydia.
Rydia's defense, she's supposed to be the best AoE for a little bit, and honestly, AoE is very valuable. I'm always looking for new AoE to update my trash clear teams.
Yeah.
I'm running twins without EX because their
Me
AoE
too.
is so good.
Me too.
Yeah, right. I know. So let's not scoff at the power of AoE characters. And Rydia's AoE is supposed to very much rival twins or even surpass it. So let's not scoff at her. We'll back her up next week.
I'll weapon token Rydia. See how that works out. Oh, that's funny. So
do we want to talk about the Cosmos fight?
I think we should
really
talk
quickly.
about the Cosmos fight. Yes. Yeah, I did not. So there was a lot of hype going into this. This is a really hard fight. Vayne's really tough. You need Vayne if you want to complete it. Yeah, I certainly didn't find this very difficult. In fact, in my first run, in my blind run, which I brought Vayne fully kitted, Vayne, all three of his weapons fully limit broke, no artifacts, and he had not had his boards done. I brought Sarah, and I do not have perfect arts on my Sarah, and I brought Cloud, and I brought a Kistis friend, and the horse in the final wave did not get an action. So it didn't seem like the hardest fight. Now, that could have been, I had Vayne, so it was easy. But looking at the data, I think the data supports the idea that it was perhaps
we'll
not
talk about
the most difficult. So what did you guys think of this particular fight before we get into the call to arms?
I went in extremely overprepared, so I knocked it out in one go as well. But again, I was prepared. I was prepared for this. JP hyped this one up a lot, and I went back and looked. Okay, because there's a lot of debate, which we're gonna get into our host discussion about JP players in our community talking about how this was the toughest Cosmos fight, and I've been echoing that for a few weeks, and I studied the fight to know who to bring in. And as soon as it launched, I brought Zack, Lena, and Renoa, and I, blew the fight up pretty easily. And then I was like, and then there's this discussion. Did we imagine this? Was this overhyped? So I went back in main cord and other JP servers, and I typed in Vayne Cosmos and searched the comments, and sure enough, when this dropped in JP, this was apparently a source of a lot of frustration and talking about how this fight was ridiculously rigged. And of course, we had a very different experience, which we're going to cover soon. But, Kreese, how did you do?
I wrecked the fight, and I brought no boosted characters. I brought a team of Zidane, Sephiroth, Lena, with a friend Quistis, and got the score, got all the requirements in one go. I went back, reran it, got a slightly better score, slightly fewer turns to upload as a video for Macnol's Call to Arms, which is now up and posted on his list if you search for it.
Slide is asking in chat if they nerfed this fight, because they have done that in the past. They have changed actually how difficult fights were.
Yes, they did not. I was going to get into this as we got further, but I checked my sources because I wanted to make sure this was such a point of contention. But I asked data miners to check the data. It's the same fight. It's the same score, same stats. Nothing has changed. The only difference is that Sarah is a synergy in global, but not a synergy in JP.
Yeah, and in the most used characters in the Call to Arms currently, of which there are 33 entries, 33 videos already, less or just over 24 hours, Sarah is not in the top 3. So certainly she's number 4. So certainly she was very valuable. But
She was used in JP as well,
yeah.
but not as much.
Not
clearly.
boost. She
yeah.
was not boosted, so she's certainly
Right.
better,
Right.
because she is boosted and she's more useful boosted. But really, very truthfully, she's not an ideal. It's much better to have, if you have Vayne, it's much better to have Lena. Very truthfully.
I will point out that at the moment there are 2 videos in the Call to Arms thread that did a 2-man of this fight. So
yes, there
obviously
are
the
duos
Cosmos is
with
not
Vayne.
particularly challenging for us. Some players have already been able to 2-man it.
Yeah, there's a Vayne Lena and a Vayne Kistis duo already. So
Right.
Yeah.
Chat's getting ahead. We're going to address all of this, chat, about how GL foresight and doing our homework and being over prepared. But to launch into that, basically, is we were very scared of this fight because of the overhype. We went in. A lot of people aren't having that much difficulty, and so as usual, Macnil put up his call to arms, and Boy Kazith, who I've personally been relying on a lot recently. He's been slowly I don't think he's released it to the public, but he's been slowly dissecting the data of each of the call to arms since the start of Cosmos, and he uses Agrius as the base because he's been analyzing all the call to arms like a crazy person. But much respect, Agrius is still to date, not counting our GL exclusive EXs like Lena, the most restrictive event. And so he's been trying to compare each Cosmos to them to see how they stack up. And so when he did Act 2, Chapter 3 Cosmos with Freya, it was actually still the most restrictive event since Agrius, as they said last week, but it was still nowhere near as bad. There was a large selection of unique characters that cleared. Even more surprising is, so DDXME on Reddit, he's a JP player, and if you've been on the subreddit, he's been compiling what is basically the JP call to arms for these events, but retroactive. So when Arc 2 Chapter 3 dropped, he said, these are all the Japanese videos of Arc 2 Chapter 3 that have been run for this event that I've compiled. And then he calculates the statistics saying, this character was used this much, this character was used this much. So when he put up Arc 2 Chapter 3, the list was small. I think we covered that in our older podcast, right? Like, the list of characters used were tiny.
Yeah, we did cover it.
Yeah, and we thought it was going to be just as bad in GL. And then when GL came, our call to arms actually had a significantly bigger variety of characters and clears. And it's just, we can say foresight, which it is a part of. Foresight is a part of it, but it's also just a lot of characters in GL. GL players use a lot of characters to clear that JP characters just at least did not touch from videos. And he was checking Japanese video sites, he was checking YouTube, and it's just tiny. For example, they only had 2 or 3 Jet clears, period. And I think Call to Arms had significantly more Jet clears. We also had Erole skewing the data because she's running like Sid and stuff. Like characters that nobody thought to use, apparently. And it's ridiculous. And then, and that's the host discussion that we're going to move into soon, is basically like, what is the difference between the GL and JP communities? Right now, I'm just going to say, I think the GL player base is just much, much larger, for one. So there's many more minds and players to tackle many different strategies. And there's a lot more variation. But also, I think that there's a small group of players in our community with this mentality that JP is just a superior player base, and not to throw shade, not insulting, but we have to acknowledge the fact that there are GL players who are coming out because of our bigger sample number, who can be more skilled than the small JP sample we've been seeing. Because entering this Vayne one as well, again, we're seeing it's only been 1 day. This data is incomplete. Call to Arms is up until the next event, which is Tuesday with Abyss. So the numbers will skew. But already in 24 hours, we've seen 30 plus entries for Call to Arms and a much wider clear variety than JP had. Period. When this rolled around in JP, they were saying, if you don't have Vayne or Zack or Renoa or certain amount of the meta characters, you cannot clear this event. One of the JP players we knew said Zidane rework was dead by Vayne event. Cannot carry Zidane through. I think Kreese took that challenge and got Zidane through.
Roll I did too. She did.
Yeah.
She did with an even less conventional team than I did.
Just to prove a point, like JP characters are saying, JP players are saying these characters are not viable for Vayne Cosmos. They are dead in a week or two. And so a lot of our GL players took on the challenge and carried a lot of these characters. I say carried, but I'm sure they carried their own weight with more creative comps, I believe, because I think Kreese said he did Zidane with Sephiroth to have a double speed down to get these characters through comp. And so I mean, there's a divide on Discord right now about, is Vayne EX difficult? Is it? I mean, Vayne Cosmos, is it actually difficult, or were we just hearing a skewed opinion from a small community? And if it is a skewed opinion, how difficult is the game moving forward into chaos? Like, is the game better balanced than we thought? When Cosmos first dropped, there was a lot of outcry in JP saying power creep, they're forcing us to pull. I personally knew several players that took a hiatus from the game or quit because they felt Square Enix was getting too greedy. But the results so far are that this is a very clearable fight without any of the synergy characters. And so is chaos really as scary as we're going to find it when it comes up? And to relate to that, there's just so many, we wanted to talk about in the host discussion, Mark and Kreese, if you can help me out, about characters that JP told us were good, but never made it into fruition. And we're not just talking about because time travelers stole their spotlight or anything, but for example, they said when 60 Awakenings dropped, Laguna was a top tier character with his debuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and first of all, there were no time travelers that stole Laguna's thunder. Let's make that very clear.
Right.
The only person who came out early was Beatrix, but Beatrix was not a AoE debuffer. She did not steal his thunder. So
I will say that the Awakening waves were timed much differently in global than they were in Japan. We started getting our Awakening waves much later than Japan did. Japan had Laguna awakened by the time they got their Noctis event. Yeah. We were still a month and a half away from Laguna getting awakened when we got Noctis.
A lot of things
there's a lot of weird timing things with the early 60 Awakenings between the two games.
Borzoi reminds us, the Borzoi is a fellow DFFOO streamer, so check him out. But he reminds us that at this point, Vayne Cosmos, Vayne event, JP did not have guaranteed pity. So that is something to consider as well.
That is fair. And so I pitied Jack. Yeah. I pitied Zack, and Vayne took me 50K. So within 2.5 weeks, I spent 200K gems. And I'm not even mad. Well, right. I'm a little salty, but I'm not even that upset because we have this early pity. If we didn't, I can't even imagine how many gems I would have spent. And working out the odds, like we said, it's a 5% chance to get the EX on the extra pull. So strictly from a statistical standpoint, 100K gems for an EX. If we're just talking pure theory and statistics. So 75K gems for a pity is extremely generous. And honestly, we're probably going to enter the chaos era with far more EXs on average for each player than JP had. That's for sure. So I'm saying no matter what missteps GL has had, and one of the reasons I didn't come on the show last week was because I was just so furious with some of the decisions, but I can't, the 1 year early pity, I think makes up for
that was a good decision.
Almost any. Yeah, it gives them a lot of goodwill.
Thank you, Square.
So,
well, just looking.
You're right.
I mean, we can talk till we're blue in the face about this is easier than we thought. Obviously, if you have Vayne, it's going to be super easy. As we're talking, Macnell has updated the spreadsheet. There are 35, and there was just a Vayne Sarah duo. So Vayne Sarah duo, Vayne Kistis duo, and Vayne Lena duo. So yeah, if you got Vayne, you're probably going to be okay. Vayne, Zack, Lena, Sarah, Kistis, Cloud, Sephiroth, Renoa, all very well used. Sid, even very well used. But let's talk about some of these non-synergy runs, like Onion Knight, Bartz, and Lena. And I think Arolai said Onion Knight, Bartz, and who? She had a similar strategy. Onion Knight, Bartz, and somebody else she said earlier. Zidane, Bartz, Kistis, and she did Onion Knight.
Zidane, Bartz, Kistis, and Onion Knight, Lena, Sid were her two teams.
Thank you, Arolai. Onion Knight, Sid, Lena, Zidane, Bartz, Kistis. Yeah, okay. Renoa, Selfie, Kistis, like Selfie got into this action, you know, and obviously using characters Renoa, Sephiroth, Sid, you know, Rem, you know, someone used Rem in a non-synergy, not Rem with Vayne, Rem, Lena, because Rem and Vayne is almost redundant. Like, I think he needs some more turns. Rem, Lena, Renoa. Yeah, someone did do a full synergy. Macnol doesn't have it as synergy. Vayne, Cyan, Paladin, Cecil, which is actually harder than a duo to use Cyan. I know. It is. It's got to be more difficult. Oh, they got a good score, 423. That's a pretty good score.
That's better than
Paladin
mine.
and Cecil there. Paladin, Cecil, Vayne carried that Cyan. That
yeah.
was sad.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. But you know, he was wasting turns. That's what I'm talking about. He was eating up turns. Rosa Kistis, Kate Sith. That's pretty impressive. Yes, thank Macnol's on the document right now, updating that for us.
Yeah, like I was talking to Macnol
Those
earlier
are some
today.
impressive
I was saying,
clears.
I think it's about time we bring back the challenge runs. We took off the challenge runs for garbage time. You remember the old challenge runs, that the TCC challenge? We always said, okay, this fight is easy if you bring the synergy characters, but can you do it this? And then we took that off for garbage time because there were some complaints about how, invalid complaints in my opinion, about how that messed up roster creativity, because they're like, oh, that discourages people from using. Why not use these characters? Why can't you bring these as a friend? And then Macnol's like, I don't want to deal with this headache. This is garbage time. You can clear it with anybody anyways. People are carrying cater through, you know, so. But we discussed it today, and we're saying with Cosmos era, we should start bringing that up and seeing how wide of a variety we can get on these supposedly difficult Cosmos fights. You know, encourage this again. Encourage people who are just starting in this era to use characters that aren't synergy, so you don't have to constantly pull all the time. So we might be bringing that again and saying. So I encourage you all listening and watching right now. We're sending out the TCC challenge. Can you clear this without the top 5 characters? Boy Kazith, he lists the top 5 characters every time. Let me see. And he said,
I don't know if Obey the Hate is trolling us, but they're saying Vayne Cosmos completed Yang, Cyan, Shadow.
Oh, that's a troll. I'm sure he's just kidding.
Please do that kidding. Video. I'd love to see them try. Not even win. I'd just like to see you die with those 3 characters. That would be great. Macnol says he didn't even put in the spreadsheet. He didn't even add in the spreadsheet Cyan is a boosted character because he didn't think anyone would use
I agree. Okay, so the challenge now, unofficial. I don't know if Macnol, you want to edit this into your thread. I don't really care if you do. But for all our listeners, please help us prove a point that maybe GL player base is very different from JP player base.
Oh, Mino, by the way, the current top 5 as of the updated video compilation is Vayne, Zack, Lena, Sarah, Kistis. Kistis overcame Cloud.
Oh, Kistis.
Okay. Cloud. So, but yeah, I don't know if Cloud's worth dropping in as well. Sometimes he has 6 depending on the rate. But
Cloud in my run. Yeah.
So we're saying just for funsies. We're not saying you're a bad player if you can't do this. We're just saying all the great, amazing players in the community. Can you help us prove a point that maybe GL is on a different playing field than JP? Can you clear this event, hitting the score, without using Vayne, Cloud, Lena, Quistis, Sarah, or Zack in your party or as a friend? It's very doable. There are already a couple of clears on there with that. but I know people like to default and get the easy clear and the high score. But let's see.
I do not think there's any clears not using any of those characters as a friend. 90% of these runs have a Quistis friend.
Yeah,
the ones that are not Quistis friends are either Cloud or Zack, with the exception of one no friend.
I don't think you have to restrict friends. We've talked about.
You think
this
friends
before.
should be fine? All right,
friends should be allowed. They're
bring up,
technically available to anyone.
Everybody can find a friend Quistis, right? I mean, no one's going to struggle to find a friend Quistis. So knock yourself out.
So let's throw that out. Well, I mean, like I said, it's only been 24 hours. We're gonna have a whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole days to get results. I think we can really blow it out of the water, honestly. So let's see what happens. Macnol, if you would, I would like you to add a little edit to your post. Let's see if we can get a much, much bigger variety than Arc 2, Chapter 3 on these clears. Because right now, with Boy Kazith's statistics, he says that there's already a wider pool of unique characters submitted to this clear than any of the old Cosmoses and Agrius. The only thing that this fight promotes is that all the top scores needed Vayne. But as far as a clear or a full complete, there's a lot more freedom to it.
Polish Prince, we need
at the moment we're at 26 unique characters used.
we need a Galif carry. So he might work. Yeah, I like it.
Hey, the Bourgeois is stepping up to the challenge.
Oh, nice.
Wait, no. This is a troll. This is a troll. He's like, okay, you guys wait until Saturday when I'm next streaming. I'll clear it with Rydia. I'll bring Rydia.
Nice.
Probably will be paired with a Vayne.
Make Rydia. Vayne, Rydia, 2020. Yeah, that's a good ticket. Get on that. Hey, if you are struggling with Cosmos, don't feel bad. It's tough. Maybe you're a new player. Maybe you're an old player that's not very good. No, I'm joking. Maybe you got Vayne and you don't know how to use him because he's kind of crazy. Come into our Discord. Go to tccpodcast.com. Click on the Discord button. Join our Discord. Ping us or message us if you can't get on there, can't find it. Follow us on Twitter, FFTCC Podcast, or at FFTCC Podcast. Message me, say, hey, I want to join Discord. We got all kinds of people, including the three of us, including everybody who's on Twitch here, including tons of other streamers and content creators like Macnol, who are going to be able, and Arrowlie, and so many others who are here, who are going to help you if you're struggling with that. Let us know what you got, and we can maybe help out with that clear. But I do think it's beatable. It's one, it's one boss. So there's paralyzed mechanics. There's turn delay mechanics. There's a lot of, you can debuff him to death. There's a lot of different things going on.
I will shout out quickly that a lot of the members of the Tonberry troop are constantly chatting on our Discord server, and also Lids has been very active. If you don't know him, he streams DFO FOO relatively frequently. He streams a bunch. He's been active on our Discord as well, chatting with people. So there are other content creators floating around chatting with everyone who wants to talk.
Yeah, Lids, thank you for becoming a very regular member of our community. And,
I don't know if Liz is watching us right now. According to Discord, he's playing Dark Souls 2.
Whatever. Anyway, before we move on, the last 2 points I want to hit in chat is Arole here says, to add on to what Mark is saying, don't feel bad if you're a new player and you can't clear Cosmos because it's just 6 tickets. And, 200 gems or whatever.
500 gems total.
Oof. Okay, so still very minimal clear rewards. So honestly, if nothing else, and I know this was very well received in JP when they got it too, Cosmos is seen as a very extra challenge, not mandatory, no high shards or awakening tools or anything locked behind it. So it is really for the more hardcore player base that really wants to push themselves. And to add on to that, Macnol wanted it to be brought to attention that since Cosmos launched with Call to Arms, because hitting a high score isn't a thing anymore, it seems like there's been a wider variety of people trying different teams instead of just putting their meta foot forward, because people used to just compete for how high a score they could get for his Call to Arms, and it seems like now people are seeing how unmeta a team they can get through Cosmos, and it's a very enjoyable change. Honestly, I really hope to see it continue forward.
Yeah, shout out to a couple of our other content creators and streamers who are on chat with us. Chris5258 was with us. Shout out to Chris. It's Mur was with us. Shout out to It's Mur. And a
Long time
longtime
gaming's
Twitch.
with us.
Yep, long time gaming, long time Twitch on Twitch
Long time
is here.
I love
so
long time guys. No,
I was
seriously, every
watching
time
him
I watch
earlier.
his
Yep.
stream, he's the most positive person in the world. Always happy, always great. He's one of the best streamers I know, and I think this is the first time he's come out to see us. So thanks for stopping by, a long time.
Long
Love
time
you
was
so
streaming
much.
earlier, and I think is going to stream here in a little bit. So make sure you check him out. There's tons. You know, if you're not familiar how to do that, you can click the Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia tag on our page or anybody's page, and just see who's streaming the game. I try to do that regularly, and just support new streamers, support younger streamers, support people who are new to the game and streaming the game. I think that's a lot of fun, and often I see people like Josepher and the Broadway Saiyan 40 also, and even Joshua, Square Enix Joshua, kind of hanging around. I see Chris all the time hanging around in new streamers' Twitches and just supporting them. So, yeah. So, yeah. So please do that. That brings us to some discussion. What do we want to talk about first, guys?
I mean,
Yeah, Furzu as well.
do we want to push for this, or do we want to save this for another episode? I feel like
We've kind of touched on a bunch of these
Yeah.
topics as we've gone through anyways.
Yeah, we've touched the host discussion. We basically dispersed throughout. And I feel like
We
we'll
did.
follow up on that in the future, because we're gonna need some stuff for the future episode. This is a pretty chock full episode. I think we're about ready to wrap up, Mark, unless there's some really pressing stuff that we haven't covered yet.
Well, we don't
want
to talk about our terrible luck this week, as all three of us did expend a few more resources than we would have liked. But yes, yeah, that's how RNG is. RNG is a fickle mistress, and we do appreciate that. But yeah, I think the one thing that we have been talking about that we probably will talk about in detail more is this. Yeah, we have to talk about our bad luck. I pitied Vayne, Mino pitied Vayne, and Zack.
Mino said it was 50k gems just a little while ago, didn't he?
50k for
50k gems.
well, still that's
2 pities plus 50k gems.
That's a lot.
I'm gonna still call myself
That's
my friend.
That's a lot.
I texted my friend. We always trade polls, and he says you must be the unluckiest person playing this game. And he's not the only person. I think
So-
a couple people in Discord said too. They're like, you got double pity and then a 50k. That's ridiculous.
So
But
let's talk about, because we did a couple things on Discord this week just to give you a sense. RNG. So if you talk about everyone's luck, right? It's really a bell curve. There's some really unlucky people and some super lucky people, and most everyone else is kind of in the middle. So I have 21 EX weapons. I have pitied once. I am almost at a 500 ticket streak without an EX weapon, which is not great, but still, within statistics.
Mark, you shouldn't have gone first. I think Kreese should have gone. I think he has better luck than all
No,
of us.
but I'm saying, so
middle ground.
I feel like I'm in the average. I've spent around 300,000 gems over the last
I want to say
6 months.
I want to say you're
And,
above average.
you know.
We just ran the numbers again recently, and average is 16 to 17 EXs.
So how many?
If you've been
how many
if
are
you've
you
been
at?
pulling with every gem. If you've been pulling with
Right,
every
okay,
gem.
yeah, right. I
Then-
would have more if I expended more of my resources. correct.
Right. So if you've pulled with every gem since EX era launched, average is 16 to 17 EXs right now. So you're at 20 something, so you're way above
I have
average,
21. Kreese has more
Mhm.
than I have,
right? Uh-huh.
but you have less than I have. There are people on our Harith is saying they have 30. There are 2 people on our server, maybe 3, who are approaching 40. So Dow so sleepy.
I am not
God.
that lucky.
Dow so sleepy.
I mean, Kreese is the luckiest of our co-hosts.
Yeah.
I want to hear Kreese's results really quick.
But
I am currently at 29 EX weapons after getting Vayne.
That's not bad. That's less lucky than I thought, but still pretty good.
I'm definitely on the higher end of luck, though I'm not the luckiest bastard out
Final
there.
character 731 is saying,
Yes.
Dow so sleepy has 39. I talked to him a little. I think Tatsumi has 38. I think he's on here. There may have been somebody else. I don't know. I thought maybe Strafe has a whole bunch, but I think Tatsumi has 38. Dow so sleepy has 39, but almost no resources. So that's one thing. So Dow has almost no resources.
Borzay says he has 32 EX weapons right now.
But also, so I mean, regardless, you have to pull to have a chance at getting an EX weapon. But obviously 40 is the high end. Like 10 is the low end. But if you have 5 or 6 and you have 700,000 gems, again, it does skew the things. But
Furzu, I'm only counting unique EX weapons.
No,
there was a case where I got a couple of duplicates in a single multi-pull.
That's a good point, Furzu. Yeah, you know, some of us could have gotten multiple. I don't think I ever have, but
I think I spent 60k gems on Lena, for example, and the multi-pull that got me Lena's EX gave me 3 copies of it.
So Macnol, so here's a good example. Macnol has 18 EX weapons, which is probably slightly above
That
average.
is not a good example.
But no,
that's not a good example. Macnol has a ton of resources.
Macnol has 300k gems. You son of a bitch! Don't tell me.
Yeah, he's got a lot more than 300,000. He has, but that was my point. It's a good example of he's got 18, which seems slightly above average, but he also has a huge gem hoard over 500,000. I think. I don't think he's got. Quetz and I all had around 300,000. Macnol's in the like 500,000-600,000 range, unless he pitied.
Yeah. And 5DPZ is the same. I see you in Twitch right now, 5DPZ. He's saying I have 15. He always says, "Oh, I have so little X. I have 15." He also has several 100k.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
I think he's up to 700k gems right now.
Yeah, does not. Okay, so if you ever want to feel good about yourself, guys, come on. Here we go. Mino is at 80k gems.
Oh, that's
14 EXs, 3 pities. 3 pities. 80k gems, 14 EXs.
Yeah.
I have yet to meet someone worse than me. I know they exist. But if you ever want to feel better than your luck, everyone that I personally interact with says I have the worst DFFOO luck, and this is divine punishment from Square Enix for that entire data mining fiasco back in the day.
If it makes you feel better, my kids, my sons, have a DFFOO account, and they have 0 gems and 30 tickets and only 3 EX weapons. So,
can I add that I spend $70-something every month as well? Yeah, I'm buying 2 gem sale packs every month.
Oh yeah.
And so I have more gems, way more gems than the average free-to-play player.
Yeah, and that is not including the 140,000 that you spent on Tidus without getting an EX before.
Oh my god! So. Yeah, so that's 18k extra gems a month since EX is launched. So that's another pity and a half, and I'm at 14 EXs, 3 pities, 80k gems left. I challenge you to that, guys.
So if anybody wants to have a bigger pity party than Mino, make sure you.
No. My point is nobody should ever feel down about their luck because I exist. So you're not the unluckiest DFFOO player.
If Pierre was still playing, he would probably have a worse record than you. No,
Pierre was getting a little lucky halfway through. Remember, his luck was coming back around. He was picking stuff.
And I have to say, your luck has to turn around at some point. You know, you can't be this
That's
bad,
not how luck
this
works.
unlucky forever.
Not how luck works.
The way luck works is that luck is not a constant thing, so your luck cannot be terrible forever either.
Whatever. I'm resigned to my fate. People say I'm saving 75k gems for a character. When I say I'm saving to pity a character, I fully expect to pity that character because it's just happened 3 times in a row. So, you can't. This is as bad as it gets. Ooh.
Yeah, well, so it goes. And so it goes. Yeah, we have a lot of other things to talk about, and we will continue to do that. Oh, go ahead.
Aminosa's saying, that's not fair, Mino. You're basically saying other people's struggles don't matter at all. Sorry, Aminosa, if that's how it came. Of course, I've been drinking, as you know, is the norm of the show. And, of course, I'm venting a little. But that is not what I mean. Everyone's problems are relative. And I'm just saying, if you ever need to feel better about yourself, know that there's someone in a shittier position than you. I'm not saying people's struggles don't matter or their bad luck and negative feelings aren't valid. I'm just saying you've got to be able to look at someone who's doing worse, like me, and feel better. It's a positive message. Feel better because you're not the bottom of the barrel. But go ahead.
I think we should also contextualize it and say we're specifically talking about DFFOO.
Yes. And me. I'm dumping on myself. I'm not dumping on anybody else. Don't. I'm sorry, Mark. I cut you off.
No,
Continue,
that's
please.
fine. That's fine. Yep, we'll talk about this and so many other things moving forward. But looking ahead, we have Abyss, a heretic-style dungeon crawl up to Cosmos difficulty event that will be unique to Global, launching on the 12th, which is Monday night?
No, Tuesday. Should be
Monday
Tuesday, right?
evening.
Wait, is it really Monday?
Monday evening in the United States.
Monday evening.
We haven't had a Monday update in a long time. That's very interesting. But also, I think we're going to go very in-depth into this next week.
Oh,
but
yes.
I just wanted to say now, with as many problems as I've had with Square Enix's decisions in Global recently, and again, why I wasn't on the show last week, otherwise it would have just been a 2-hour hate rant from me. But I believe Abyss is a very good thing, and I'm very excited for it. Very good step in the right direction.
I'm just not sure how I'm going to survive when I can only bring Lena to one.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you can only bring Lena to one thing. What the heck? What are we going to do? Crap. Yeah.
Lena has been, even though I nearly pitied her, she has been the best investment so far. She has been a staple for every hard event and pretty much every difficult event I've had since she arrived. She has been amazing. She makes everyone else better. She makes it so much safer to get through.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. GRW18 says, I just want to put this out there. Since EX weapon debut, November 2018, I spent 140k gems total. Failed every EX weapon before grabbing Beatrix EX. So that's 4 months of failed EX weapon banner. Well, GRW18, I spent more than that on a single chasing a single
on one
EX
banner
and failed to get that.
Come join the pity party. Hey, there's enough room in the pity party for everybody. We all feel bad for you, but mostly Mino wants everybody to feel worse for him.
Yeah.
His
I
luck
want
is-
everyone to
is
feel
the
better
worst. Yeah.
about themselves.
Feel good. Feel good about yourself and your luck. So, all right. So Abyss on the 12th, and then Rydia Lost Chapter on the 15th, Overcoming Sadness. And there will be sadness as we talk about poor Rydia. So I believe that is it for this week, as always.
Hang on.
Yes?
Before we bounce, because I'm hoping this reaches Square Enix Joshua in time, because Kreese was making a big deal about this in Discord. A localization error, right? Kreese, did you want to bring that up really quick?
Yeah. I don't know if I should talk about this because the source I got it is not exactly
Data
legit.
mine. We talk about data mining here all the time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't have the direct source of the data miner, so I don't like to talk about it. But anyways, supposedly, according to data mining, Rydia's unique buff, which I think Rem officially translated or unofficially translated as power to overcome, is currently in the game files noted to be Subjugating Strength, which doesn't really make sense for Rydia. Like, why is that the name of the buff? So I'm hoping this is just a mistake in the files, and that's not the way it's going to come. But it seems like a really weird name for a buff for Rydia, the character.
While you're at it, Square Enix, can you fix all the other dozens of localization mistakes? Namely, Golbez's is supposed to be Lunarian Descendant, but I think in global it's Lunarian Descent, which also makes no sense. And then
He came from the sun, from the moon, I guess, so it kind of makes sense.
that's not what the Japanese says. Like, you should do some accurate translations. You know, there's a million little things like
Yeah,
Bartz's.
Borzoi, just to be clear, the buff as it has been data mined is currently called Subjugating Strength from Rydia's EX weapon.
And then you know, there's a million things like Bartz's C50 is simple mastery. It should be innate mastery. FF5, once you master something, you bring in all the other classes, and the freelancer class, simple mastery doesn't. You know what? I could talk forever for this, but the point is, at least fix Rydia, because she's coming up and not out yet. So
We'll see.
Square Enix has been receptive for some things. They fixed Lightning
they
names.
They fixed the buff names that people complain about on Reddit, like Squall's Renzo Zukin, and they updated Sabin's Blitz names to the more recent translations. You know, but only when people call it to attention. But there's a lot of them that slip through the cracks.
Well, we'll see when that hits. So, that will be it for episode 64 of the Crystal Chronicles. If you want to connect with us, that would be at www.tccpodcast.com. Facebook, FFTCC Podcast, Twitter at FFTCC Podcast, Twitch, The Crystal Chronicles, YouTube, The Crystal Chronicles, and of course, feel free to subscribe to us if you're catching the podcast or part of it live on Twitch, but not the whole thing. We do get the podcast out there to all your favorite podcast apps and services, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, etc. It's available anywhere that you podcast. Feel free to check in with us throughout the week on Twitch. So, yeah, we'd love to chat with you, and we're all available. So for myself, Mino Spellgood, Kreese, a.k.a. Zerank, this is the Crystal Chronicles. And until next time, we're wishing you all good pulls and good luck.